Shots fired! Get inside! Go, go, go! An active shooter inside a Texas school.
I left my daughter at that school, and that decision will haunt me for the rest of my life.
Children trapped in a classroom pleading for help.
Please hurry, there's a lot of dead bodies. Please, help.
But while hundreds of officers responded, it took 77 minutes before any help arrived.
I know there was probably victims in there, and with the shots I heard, I know there's probably somebody going to be deceased. We're going to get scrutinized. I'm expecting that. We're going to get scrutinized why we didn't go in there.
2 officers, among the first on the scene, now charged.
You're supposed to protect and serve. There is no excuse for their actions, and I will never forgive them.
And 3.5 years later,
Gonzalez is not guilty, and we'll be litigating that before a jury at the right time.
one of those cases finally goes to trial. Thank you for joining us. I'm Chris Lawrence. 19 children and 2 teachers were killed at Robb Elementary School, and now someone connected to that case is going to trial for the first time. Not in Uvalde, but Corpus Christi, 200 miles away from the scene of that mass shooting. And it's not the suspected shooter who was killed that day. This trial has to do with the failed response. It took authorities well over an hour to confront the gunman and put him down. And now 2 officers are facing criminal charges. Former Uvalde school officer Adrian Gonzales is facing 29 counts of abandoning and endangering a child. 1 count for the 19 children who died that day and the 10 who survived. Former Uvalde School Police Chief Pete Arredondo was the commander on site. He's facing 10 counts of child endangerment and abandonment. But Arredondo's trial date is still pending. 21 lives were lost that day, including 4th graders who started the school day celebrating their accomplishments just days before summer break. 2 of their beloved teachers were also killed. There's so many aspects to this case. We'll learn more about those victims over the next half hour, and we'll take a closer look at the case against Adrian Gonzales. The surprising detail we learned from his training records and what happened over those excruciating 77 minutes as officers waited in the hall. And an in-depth timeline of the chaos that unfolded. It's important to know how we got to this point. What you'll see isn't suitable for younger viewers and can be difficult for anyone to watch. It's hard to believe, but some of the victims would be teenagers today. And as Jobin Puneker reports, the precious time lost has been consumed with a fight for answers and change.
It is one of the deadliest school shootings in our country's history.
I'd hoped I would not have to do this again. Another massacre. Uvalde, Texas.
And then he came in and he crouched a little bit and he said it's time to die.
May 24th, 2022. A horribly tragic day made worse by what we've learned weeks, months, and years later.
Uvalde County 911. This is school shooting.
Salvador Ramos texted a friend that day his deadly plans. Then, in the span of 2 hours, coldly carried them out.
I'm going to shoot my grandmother. The second post was, I shot my grandmother. The third post, maybe less than 15 minutes before arriving at the school, was, I'm going to shoot an elementary school.
DPS first reported a teacher had left the back door open. We learned later that was wrong.
The exterior door was propped open by a teacher.
DPS said that's how Ramos got into Robb Elementary. That's how he got into room 111. Remember the faces of the victims, 19 students and 2 teachers. But remember this too, the number 77. Authorities tell us 77 minutes passed between the moment Ramos entered the school and when tactical teams finally breached the doors to kill him.
They take rounds. They move back. Get cover.
The question, what took so long? And is still being asked 3 years later.
We all ran right there by the gate, didn't let no one in.
Starting with the police response on May 24th, 2022.
Really couldn't.
One that reports reveal resembled a barricaded subject rather than an active shooter.
Really couldn't tell who was or who wasn't.
By June of that year, we had the first images of the response.
Take cover, guys.
And the man who carries the brunt of the scrutiny. Former Chief Pete Arredondo.
We haven't contained. There's probably going to be some deceased in there, but we don't need any more from out here.
Months later, in July, a Texas House report describes, quote, systemic failures and egregiously poor decision-making. Between 2022 and 2024, the release of public information was slow. News stations and newspapers had to file multiple legal challenges against the school district, the city, the county, and DPS. 2023 introduced a number of school public safety bills. One bill allotted $1.1 billion for safety upgrades. Another compelled districts to create active shooter plans and mental health training. That same bill, House Bill 3, mandated an armed security guard at every school and weekly exterior door checks. Many districts say the state funding was not enough to carry these out.
We do everything to protect these guns. Let's just try something to protect our children.
But some bills after Uvalde did not pass. Most notably, one that raised the age to buy a semi-automatic gun from 18 to 21.
Did you think we would go home? Enough is enough. Please do something.
A number of victim families left Austin angry and disappointed.
We can't even imagine the pain that they felt.
In July of 2023, Uvalde's mayor, Don McLaughlin Jr., resigned to run for the 80th House District on a platform to fix active threat response.
I know.
2 years after the mass shooting, in June of 2024, 2 officers are charged and indicted. 2 of the 400 officers who responded, former Chief Arredondo and former school district officer Adrian Gonzales, for child endangerment and abandonment.
We have another Sandy Hook on our hands. What are we doing?
The former mayor, McLaughlin, would win the seat in November of 2024. In April of 2025, the Uvalde Strong bill passes in the Texas legislature, which requires better coordination and leadership during an active shooter situation. 6 months later, in October of 2025, the newly built Legacy Elementary welcomed students. Which brings us to January of 2026. Adrian Gonzales will have his day in court in Corpus Christi. He's pleaded not guilty. Arredondo's trial hasn't been set yet.
Can you hear me, sir?
Pending federal legal challenges.
Can you hear me, sir?
Time has brought some clarity, corrected some initial reports from that day. People even vindicated.
You see me kick the rock and pull the door.
But for this teacher accused of propping the door open, the damage is done.
You chose to blame me.
So much has happened, so much emotion.
Trust in his strength.
In 3 years, and yet the victims' families feel there's so little accountability.
When you can't walk, when you can't get up.
Beyond the actions of one deranged shooter.
He'll lift you up.
How deep is your love, Father?
On one deadly day.
Restore us, Father, in Jesus' mighty name.
A day that will be remembered and recorded forever. I'm Jobin Paniker.
I just want to reiterate a couple things that Jobin mentioned. Former officer Adrian Gonzales has pleaded not guilty to the charges against him. He was arraigned in the summer of 2024, more than a year after the shooting. Senior investigative reporter Tanya Iser takes a look at the case against him.
Adrian Gonzales faces 29 counts of abandoning or endangering a child, 19 for the children who were killed and 10 for those who were wounded. He is the first police officer in the state of Texas to be tried under the statute for allegedly failing to take action. And the outcome of this case could have ramifications for law enforcement far beyond that courtroom. The body cam begins with officers running and a warning.
Guys, be careful! He might be in that building!
Several minutes later, a gunman armed with a long rifle had stepped into Uvalde's Robb Elementary.
Shots fired inside the building, Uvalde!
Uvalde School's police officer Adrian Gonzales and other officers enter through the south side of the school. 77 minutes would pass from the time officers arrived on scene until tactical units finally moved in and killed the gunman. What Gonzalez did, or failed to do during those 77 minutes, is now at the heart of a 29-count indictment. Prosecutors allege that after hearing gunshots and being advised of the general location of the shooter, he failed to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, and that he failed to attempt to follow his active shooter training by advancing toward the gunman.
Watching the video and knowing everything that I know about the incident, clearly Uvalde failed at the most basic level of an active shooter response, which is to go and eliminate the threat immediately.
Jurors will now have to decide whether those failures weren't just missteps, but criminal acts.
This is one that could go either way.
Mike Howard is a Dallas criminal defense attorney and former public defender.
If I'm the prosecutor, I'm going to say, well, his inaction placed them, in danger.
But do you criminalize that?
That's right. I'm the defense. Where I'm going to argue is falling short of the mark is not a crime. Even being a coward is not a crime. The defense is really going to put forward, put yourself in Officer Gonzalez's shoes. When he arrives, what does he know? What does he not know?
In interviews after the shooting, Gonzalez told investigators that after entering the building and hearing gunshots, he attempted to call for a tactical team, but his radio had no reception inside the building.
So I stepped out and never went back into that hallway.
Here's Gonzalez positioned at the corner of the building, talking to the Uvalde police sergeant wearing the body camera, telling him what he saw when he first got there.
I saw his teacher on the ground and I thought she had tackled somebody. So when I came up, she was by her side. I saw her running and a cloud of dust. I thought she tackled somebody.
Here he is just minutes before police stormed the classroom and killed the gunman.
Want to start getting kids out? I can start jumping. Cover them. Go, run over there.
This was clearly not a barricaded person.
James Hawthorne served as the chief of a North Texas school district for 9 years until recently retiring.
You have the duty to respond, to act, and try to eliminate the threat because, again, lives are at risk.
The trial is likely to expose far more about what he did and didn't do that day, and whether those choices rise to the level of a crime.
As a prosecutor, I think you just really want to keep the focus on the children, the focus on the victims, and how, there was one man who could have prevented it.
I'm Tanya Iser.
Oh my God, he has a gun! 77 minutes of terror. 77 minutes of failure. From body cam video to first-hand accounts.
They're scared, man. I know.
What kept officers from taking action? And who is Adrian Gonzales? We dig into his law enforcement past, what his training records reveal.
From Dallas to Houston, San Antonio to Austin, it's the news that moves all of Texas. Texas News Now, one power-packed hour with enough Texas news to fill a 10-gallon hat. Your top headlines, weather alerts, and big travel updates. No matter where you're headed, across town or across the state, we've got Texas covered. Texas News Now, weekdays, 10 a.m. Download on your TV and watch for free. Uvalde, a tragedy that changed us forever. 3 years later, as the trial begins, a community seeks answers.
The families of 19 children and 2 teachers killed in Uvalde are bracing for new evidence.
We're there, listening to the families, following every moment, committed to the truth they deserve.
I hope that we can get to some real justice and real accountability for those families that lost their children.
Stream continuous coverage.
We think it's important to be upfront and say, while this next story covers a crucial aspect of the case, it can be difficult to watch. Senior crime and justice reporter Rebecca Lopez gives us an in-depth look at 77 minutes of chaos, the time it took hundreds of armed officers, deputies, and troopers to finally breach a classroom door.
Time can be cruel. The families in Uvalde know this better than anyone. Most have now watched the videos showing what happened inside Robb Elementary during the 77 minutes that forever changed their lives. At 11:28 a.m. on May 24th, 2022, surveillance footage captured a man crashing a truck into a ravine near the school.
Oh my God, they're running. I don't know why.
Moments later, he ran towards the campus, firing his weapon. A teacher who was standing outside immediately realized something was wrong. She ran inside, shut the door that had been propped open with a rock, and called 911. The door she pulled shut should have locked automatically, but it didn't. At 11:30, teachers across the campus began locking down their classrooms as the gunman continued firing.
Apparently he's out there with the rifle, so they're with us.
At 11:33, the shooter slipped through that unlocked door, walked down the hallway, and entered classrooms 111 and 112, opening fire. As responding officers arrived, their body cameras captured the chaos.
Oh, shots fired! Get inside! Go, go, go!
Surveillance and body camera video showed officers reaching the hallway within 2 minutes. Investigators say during that time, the shooter fired more than 100 rounds with his AR-15 rifle.
Shots fired inside the building, Uvalde!
At 11:36, two groups of officers entered the school from different directions. According to investigators, Uvalde School District Officer Adrian Gonzales was among the first to go inside, followed by District Police Chief Pete Arredondo. At 11:37, the gunman fired at officers as they approached the classrooms. Two officers were grazed by the bullets and retreated. None shot back, according to an after-action report conducted by the Justice Department. Instead of engaging an active shooter as they are trained to do, investigators say officers treated the situation like a barricaded suspect.
He's inside this building. We have him contained.
Chief Arredondo didn't go in either. Investigators say he called for backup and waited. At least one officer was heard pushing to act.
We need to get these kids out of here.
More officers from DPS, Border Patrol, and other agencies arrived.
They're scared, man. I know.
Yet still, no one confronted the shooter. Instead, they focused on finding keys to the classrooms. At 11:44, the gunman fired again. Officers still did not move in. At 12:03, a child called 911 from inside the classroom, pleading for help.
Please hurry. There's a lot of dead bodies.
According to the after-action report, officers knew children were still alive.
Somebody student was on call 911. 12, they're locked in there, multiple casualties.
Video shows officers standing just outside the classroom with ballistic shields capable of stopping rifle rounds. The shooter continued firing. But it wasn't until 12:50, after 77 agonizing minutes, that a Border Patrol tactical team made entry and killed the gunman. Inside, chaos erupted. So many officers crowded the hallways that paramedics struggled to reach the wounded. Outside, paramedics set up a triage area, trying to save whomever they could. Deputy Felix Rubio paced in desperation, searching for his daughter, Lexi.
I see something. No, but let me get the answer for you. Let me work on that, okay? Please don't come home. Please. Maybe I promise you I'll have you an answer. I promise. Never let you down. I'm not gonna let you down.
Lexi was among the 19 children killed that day. Now, both Chief Pete Arredondo and School Resource Officer Adrian Gonzales face multiple felony charges of abandoning or endangering a child for their delayed response. Both men have defended their decisions, but prosecutors and critics say if they had followed their training, perhaps more lives could have been saved. I'm Rebecca Lopez.
They went to school and never came home.
I love you so much.
19 little boys and girls, 2 beloved teachers. We remember the victims and their legacies that live on. And the man on trial, what we've learned about Adrian Gonzales.
From Dallas to Houston, San Antonio to Austin, it's the news that moves all of Texas. Texas News Now. One power-packed hour with enough Texas news to fill a 10-gallon hat. Your top headlines, weather alerts, and big travel updates. No matter where you're headed, across town or across the state, we've got Texas covered. Texas News Now. Weekdays, 10 a.m. Download on your TV and watch for free. Uvalde, a tragedy that changed us forever. 3 years later, as the trial begins, A community seeks answers.
The families of 19 children and 2 teachers killed in Uvalde are bracing for new evidence.
We're there, listening to the families, following every moment, committed to the truth they deserve.
I hope that we can get to some real justice and real accountability for those families that lost their children.
Stream continuous coverage.
We've explained the legal case against Adrian Gonzales, but now it's time to learn more about the man himself. Investigative reporter Morgan Young did some digging and discovered Gonzalez took active shooter training months before the shooting at Robb Elementary School.
Many will be remembered for what they did, but since this tragic day, former Uvalde CISD officer Adrian Gonzales has been remembered and will stand trial for what he didn't do. He had been with the school district's police department for less than a year when it happened. He was hired in July 2021. Records from the Texas Commission of Law Enforcement show that before that, he had served with the city of Uvalde's police department for more than 10 years after getting his peace officer license in 2010. Those records also show that on December 17, 2021, just more than 5 months before the shooting at Robb Elementary, Gonzalez had completed a required 8-hour active shooter training course designed for school-based law enforcement. That course was taught by the Law Enforcement Academy at Southwest Texas College in Uvalde, where Gonzalez was also working on college credits. The college did not respond to my request for information on the course that was taught, but this flyer posted to the Southwest Texas Law Enforcement Academy Facebook page advertises an 8-hour active shooter training with the same identification number of the course Gonzalez completed, stating that among the topics covered were priorities of action for school-based law enforcement and both the solo and unified response to active shooter events. According to the flyer, this course was taught 2 months before the shooting at Robb Elementary.
Respectfully just recommend people to pause and see if that anger should be directed at Mr. Gonzalez. That's it.
Gonzalez's attorney, Nico LaHood, did not respond to a request for comment about his client for this story, but said this about the case in 2024.
Mr. Gonzalez is not guilty, and we'll be litigating that before a jury at the right time.
As that time approaches and the debate about what did or didn't, should or should have happened looms in a courtroom, there is also the question of how Adrian Gonzales, who was also a husband, father, and grandfather, will be known and remembered. I'm Morgan Young.
As for Pete Arredondo, the case against the former school police chief remains on hold. Like Gonzalez, Arredondo is asking a judge to move his trial out of Uvalde. DPS claims Arredondo took command of the scene and made the decision not to breach the classroom. But Arredondo told CNN he's being scapegoated.
Look at the body cam footage. There was no hesitation, and myself and the first handful of officers that went in there and went straight towards the hot zone, as you may call it.
And we should note there's also a separate federal lawsuit pending designed to compel border agents on scene to testify. Marking a milestone after a mass shooting, a young survivor finally focusing on joy. We remember her classmates, children with legacies who will never be forgotten.
If you haven't said Happy Mother's Day to your mom, what are you doing? Go say it right now.
From Dallas to Houston, San Antonio to Austin, it's the news that moves all of Texas. Texas News Now, one power-packed hour with enough Texas news to fill a 10-gallon hat. Your top headlines, weather alerts, and big travel updates. No matter where you're headed, across town or across the state, we've got Texas covered. Texas News Now, weekdays, 10 a.m. Download on your TV and watch for free. Uvalde, a tragedy that changed us forever. 3 years later, as the trial begins, a community seeks answers.
The families of 19 children and 2 teachers killed in Uvalde are bracing for new evidence.
We're there, listening to the families, following every moment, committed to the truth they deserve.
I hope that we can get to some real justice and real accountability for those families that lost their children.
Stream continuous coverage.
It's hard to believe we've gone 3.5 years since the shooting, but some of the survivors who were 11 years old at the time are now celebrating milestones at 15. Mia Cerrillo was in room 112 that day and still has shrapnel lodged in her back and shoulders. She recently shared this photo celebrating her quinceañera, and we're told Mia wore her dream dress and danced the night away. From survivors like Mia to the moms and dads who lost their children and the Uvalde community as a whole, this trial could trigger a lot of unwanted memories, but it's one more step towards possible accountability. We invite you to watch Gavel to Gavel coverage. You can trust us to bring you live, accurate reports from the courthouse, along with expert legal analysis. But as we leave you for now, we take a moment to honor those 21 lives.
It's hard to believe it's been more than 3 years since we lost them. Since 19 children and 2 teachers went to school on a Tuesday like any other and never came home. Crosses were built, murals painted, balloons released, honoring who they were, mourning who they could have become. They had dreams. Jackie Cáceres wanted to be a veterinarian, Jose Flores Jr. wanted to be a police officer, and Alicia Ramirez wanted to be an artist. She was an artist. The people who knew and loved these faces cling to what they have of them. They share old photos and videos.
I love you so much, and you can send me a video too. I'll be happy.
They remember little things. Eliana Garcia's family called her Ellie for short. She loved Encanto and played basketball. Eliana Torres was an athlete too. She died just days before her last softball game of the season, so local teams honored her by playing the games she loved, wearing jerseys with her picture on them. The murals painted by various artists honor each victim, telling their stories, sharing their hearts with those who see them. Xavier Lopez's family wanted to make sure his mural included the teddy bear that he loved to have on all of his shirts. And cousins Jayla Silguero and Jace Luevanos' family made sure his mural included a dinosaur, and hers had a unicorn. They were so young. Most should have turned 14 this year. Lucia Garcia's favorite character was Spider-Man, and Rogelio Torres loved Pikachu. They were young, but they have legacies that will live on.
You as leaders have a choice of what my daughter's life will be remembered for. Will she die in vain, or will her life have saved another child?
Tess Matta's parents created a scholarship for students in Texas State University's College of Health Professions to honor her dreams. And Girl Scouts of America awarded Anne-Marie Jo Garza the Rare Bronze Cross for her bravery.
If you haven't said Happy Mother's Day to your mom, what are you doing? Go say it right now.
States away, the Detroit Youth Choir sings the song Layla Salazar would sing with her father on the way to school in the morning.
Can you show these shoes, please?
And many bought green Converse sneakers, drawing a heart on the right toe, just like Mate Rodriguez was wearing that day.
These are the same green Converse on her feet that turned out to be the only clear evidence that could identify her after the shooting.
Annabelle Rodriguez loved blue butterflies, and Miranda Mathis had a thing for purple unicorns. That McKenna Elrod named all of the animals her parents showed at the local stock show, and that Nevi Bravo created beautiful doodles of birds and hearts. They were children. And the 2 teachers who died trying to protect their students had children of their own. Eva Mireles was honored by her fitness community with a special workout and a race. And Irma Garcia was laid to rest with her husband and high school sweetheart, who passed just days later from a heart attack. But his loved one says he just couldn't take life without her. It is hard to believe it's been more than 3 years since we lost these beautiful people. But the people who knew and loved them will make sure no amount of time makes us forget.